Hey guys, Captain Figurine back with another video. Today we take a closer look at the Panzer III Model N because someone asked for this down in the comment section. It seems like a lot of people struggle to deal with that tank, and it isn't an easy tank to deal with because it's a good German tank we have here. So stay tuned, I'll give you some information so you know better how to deal with the tank and if you play the tank to avoid getting shot. But first of all, as always, let's get some background information about this tank. This tank was initially designed by Daimler. There was a competition between different companies and finally they decided to pick up Daimler's model. The first one, Model A, they finished it at 1937, but they had a lot of trouble with the suspension. So Model A to D was just like different suspensions they tried out. So they started having a good suspension on Model E and then finally mass produced Model F. So when the war started in early 1939, they had just about 100 of these tanks around. So not really a lot, but luckily, as we know, they got some Czech tanks around to help them out because they had a very slow production rate on this Panzer III. Also, on the earlier version, they were designed to use the classy 37mm gun. Since they started to struggle with that 37mm gun against a lot of the heavy tanks, they put a 50mm gun on it. So they had a short barreled 50mm first, then went to a longer barreled 50mm, and when they finally went to the model we have here, the last model they did, Model N, they went back to the short barrel but with a 75mm. And they had good heavy explosive shells to deal with infantry and also could deal with tanks if needed because they could penetrate easily up to 75 or 100mm of steel. So as I said, they built a whole lot of them, a whole lot of different models. So N was built in 1942, 1943 and 614 were built. So as you can see on this model here, there on the side some side armor. This side armor was initially designed for projectiles to redirect them, change the direction or just lower the speed of impact. So there is more steel it has to penetrate. But then they found out it's also pretty good against the upcoming hollow charged weapons like bazookas and so on. Because if they hit these armor plates and detonate, a lot of the force is not applied to the tank. So the side armor was a good design for the time, even if the initial design wasn't for the hollow charges. Alright, now let's take a closer look at all the stats we have on this Panzer III. I will use the War Thunder client here because it's so useful, we can take a better look at it, and it's the same model as we have in Enlisted. So this tank uses a 5-man crew, so it's a big crew we have on this tank, and for the armaments we have the 75mm cannon I was talking about, the short barreled one, and two 7.92mm MG34 machine guns. One there on the front and the other one on the top. The one on the top, you can tell from the sights it was designed for air defense. So as you can see there, the MG on the top is very movable, so it's very good for air defense, but it is just usable from the commander's seat. So we have a reload time of 3.3 seconds, we have a turret rotation speed of 11.9 degrees per second, and a gun aim speed of 3.2 degrees per second. This is the maximum amount we can move the gun up, so you can still do some air defense from inside the tank if needed. And this is as far as it goes down, so you can see the dead zone we have where we cannot really defend ourselves against infantry, but you can move it down quite well. Now let's take a closer look at the armor. We have the 53mm at the front, the 30mm at the side, a 53mm at the back and 16mm at the bottom. So yeah, we can see here, we have down here, we have the 53mm or around 50mm, and we have here on the top of the turret, we have the 50mm front as well, as you can see there on the stats. Because this is called the War Panzer, so they just added another 20mm of steel on the turret here. So this is quite hard to penetrate. So here in the center we have a 50mm armor behind and some spaced 20mm armor in front of it. So where you can really penetrate it is if you can get a lucky shot through the sides or at the MG. But don't try to shoot it at the 50mm because it's also angled, so it's very hard to penetrate there and you probably just get some bounces. For the turret, yeah, as I said, we have the 50mm at the front, we have the 30mm at the side, at the back 30mm and 10mm at the top. So if you get a good attack from the top, it's very easy to penetrate. So you can also do some stuff with the planes there. But keep an eye out for that 7.92mm machine gun on the top. Also, as I said, we have the 53mm at the back. So it does not really matter if you hit it from the back or from the front. But from the back, you can try to go on these top parts or can try to just penetrate the turret. So the plates on the side, they're about 5mm. We have the whole armor plate on the side that is about 30mm thick. So you really need some heavy guns to penetrate it. But now, where do you need to hit this tank? So let's take a closer look at the inside of the tank. So as I said, if you penetrate it from the front, you can hit the driver or the machine gunner there. Or if you go through very lucky, you can also hit some guys at the turrets. So you can get the loader, the gunner or the commander. Depends on how the position of the turret is or how you're spread inside the tank is. So we can see the spare ammo down there and behind the commander. We have the two radiators in the back. We have a big fuel tank. And as you can see, if you approach the tank from the front, it's on the left side. So keep that in mind. And the engine is right at the center. So this gives us a lot better of an idea where we have to hit this tank. Also, if you approach it maybe from the side, you also need to know where you have the engine, the fuel tanks, the radiators and that ammo. So you can get some good shots off and maybe one-shot it if you get a nice hit. Because if you try to go for the crew members, it's still a 5-man crew, you can really start to struggle. So keep that in mind. So I think the Panzer III is a very nice tank. It's a good all-rounder, it can deal with air units, can deal very well with the infantry, with the high explosive shells and with the MG, and can really suppress your opponent. So played well, this is a real pain. But keep in mind, it is a very slow moving tank, so it can be easily picked off with explosive packs, anti-tank guns, and especially with enemy air units. So keep that in mind and practice your air defense. Or if you get maybe some guys in your squad, they can give you some infantry backup and protect you from incoming infantry. You want to get a good position in the back where you get some cover, so you can use that high explosive shells, get some cover if you have to swap the ammo if there's a tank incoming, and because you're slow and it's very hard to aim while moving, you really want to get a good position where you can do a lot of work for your team. So I hope this video was useful to you guys. I hope you know a lot more now about the Panzer III. And as always guys, stay tuned, have a good one. Captain Figurine out.